Spring is starting to spring, everybody. Have you noticed when you've looked up at the skies, when you've been out about at the park, on your way home from school, on your way to school, there are tiny signs that things are changing, that there's bursts of colour creeping out through the greys of our winter. And we're lucky enough in our school garden to have the most glorious plum blossom, which is coming out into bloom now. I spent some time there, as you can see earlier today, just looking up, and I encourage you to, if you have a moment, to try and do the same thing when you're outside, looking down, see if you can spot any daffodils, the remains of snowdrops. There's lots of camellias out in bloom at the minute, even some very early magnolia blossoms coming out. It definitely is a change in season happening, and the birds are telling us that too. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make your art linked to the plum blossom, which is a long art history, and you could use a variety of materials. I'm using inks, I'm using some tissue paper to collage, and some waxy crayons and oil pastels. Let's have a look.
Plum blossoms are like little heroes in nature because they bloom beautifully even when it's freezing cold. In China especially, people really love plum blossoms because they're a sign that spring is on its way. For years, artists, especially a man named Jin Nong, loved painting them. His paintings were so good that they even became popular in Japan. Now, Jin Nong wasn't a young painter when he started making his plum blossom artworks. He was actually 69, but he was incredibly talented because his paintings were special. They showed the blossoms in many creative ways, from big full branches to just a few delicate buds. He was a master at making his paintings look both real and kind of like art magic, abstract art at the same time. What's really fascinating about Jin Nong's paintings is how he mixed in elaborate writing with the paintings, like secret messages that make them even more interesting. His writing wasn't just words, it was like another piece of art all by itself. Plum blossoms, therefore, are more than just pretty flowers. They are symbols of strength and hope because they bloom when things are tough, and artists like Jin Nong made them even more special and timeless with these incredible artworks. To make my own Jin Nong inspired plum blossom artwork, I'm using Indian ink, a squeezy pipette, squirt and splat, as well as collaging with tissue paper, spreading the ink with a brush, and you could use colour, watercolour if you wished, or oil pastels like we practiced last week. The plum blossom collages can be really simply made just by scrunching your tissue paper. But to start off with, I'm using the wet on wet technique that I've showed you previously with watercolours. Well, the same thing can be applied with Indian ink. Using a broad brush, a big thick brush, I firstly prep my canvas by spreading water in a kind of loose shape of big broad branches growing from a sturdy trunk. Then I'm adding little droplets of the very strong black ink with the pipette and also with the thicker brush. You can continue this process, spread the water, then drip on the ink and kind of let it see where it wants to flow by itself. You can use the pipette or any other sort of pointed object, the other end of a paintbrush, to move it, and you can also, in a controlled way, move the paper itself. Do make sure you've got used paper underneath you to catch any driplets. You want to have thinner twiglets towards the ends and the top, and of course roots. There we are. The tree itself, very striking dark black against the milky sky. That's characteristic of a plum blossom. Next, wee pops of colour, and this is where your collaging, your tissue paper can come in handy. Or if you wanted to use finger painting, using your watercolours, you could use your own fingers to make the buds, or oil pastels. But I think these are a nice contrast to the darkness of the ink, and they kind of raise it and lift it off the page, wafting in the breeze.